every year since they've had Justin Herbert, the media, Twitter, all these other spaces are like, well, they could really give the Chiefs some trouble in that division. And every year they either, make questionable calls at the end of games. There's a costly, painful play. Something always happens where they just don't do it. They just underperform. And this year it's really starting to unravel. And the Chargers, honestly, at this point, they just suck. They just suck. Justin Herbert, like I said, is overrated. Brandon Staley is a boob. He's got the intelligence of a fish at this point.
Chat GPT, should I go for it?
Yeah. Idiot.
Yeah.
And then they clearly miss Mike Williams. They have this Austin Eckler debacle roaming over them. They're not going to pay him. No. I don't blame them. Whatever. When it comes to running and really opening the game up, he doesn't really do it. They would do better with a complementary piece around him.
Yeah.
But this team sucks in every way. Their defense disappoints. Their offense disappoints. Justin Herbert's now officially overpaid. It's a disaster.
Yeah, it is a disaster. Unfortunately, I saw this coming 2 years ago because I sat down here and then Chargers fans were going nuts. Even people who weren't Chargers fans, shout out to my friend Dylan Chase. He was like, 2 years ago, he's like, I can't wait for the Chargers to come out here and just dominate everyone. I'm like, why? He's like, oh, well, they got Khalil Mack. They got JC Jackson. I'm like, okay, Khalil Mack is old, so he's going to be limited. He'll give you some production, but he's not going to be consistent and there for you every game. He struggled through injuries and then had a good half versus the Jacksonville Jaguars and kind of disappeared. Ran out of gas in the second half. Joey Bosa, he's good, but he's not as good as his brother Nick. And then he also does some questionable things at the end of games versus the Jacksonville Jaguars and had a hand in costing them that game. So Joey Bosa, great player, but he has some of his off the field issues. He's making bank though. So shout out to Joey. You're still a dominant player. And then JC Jackson, I was like, this isn't the answer to your secondary. It's not going to fix anything. He's a system guy in New England. He will thrive in New England with that secondary, but look at his interceptions. Most of them were credit to Devin McCourty for creating those. It was a lot of tip balls, right place, right time. He did lead the league in interceptions, but as far as a coverage guy, I was like, this isn't a guy you can just match up against the best receiver and say, go lock him down like you could with Sauce, like you could with Sherm, like you could with Revis, Talib, go down the list. Like, he's just not one of those guys. He's just an average corner or slightly above average corner. But he's not elite. He's not going to change your secondary. And I was like, okay, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. It's like Austin Eckler is good, but he's a little bit older. And then Keenan Allen, his norm is not staying healthy, and if he's healthy, Mike Williams isn't healthy. And I'm like, this is a team that needs Mike Williams and Keenan Allen to be a dominant football team, and not even a dominant football team. They need Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler to be healthy, to be a wild card team, and that's to get to the playoffs, to the first round, to have the pleasure of blowing a massive lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars and anointing Trevor Lawrence as the prince who is promised. So it's like Justin Herbert, I've always been like, yeah, that guy has a lot of talent. I looked at that guy and was like, wow, he has a lot of talent. And then with Justin Herbert, it's just like, okay, but he has no dog. I'm not afraid if he gets to the ball last. He's not even like an Andrew Luck. He's not a culture changer like Joe Burrow. He's not as good of a quarterback as Trevor Lawrence. He's not as fast or dominant as Lamar Jackson. And he's in the same division as Patrick Mahomes, who's just clearly better than him. Andy Reid is a much better coach than Brandon Staley. And until you get someone on that level, which as Andy Reid, which there's maybe 1, 2, 4 other coaches on that same level, like, this team isn't going to be good. But I went down and I was like, there's a defense that stumbles at the end of games. Joey Bosa gets some calls on him. And then Herbert is someone who can just disappear in games. You're like, where'd he go? And he'll give you those highlight reel plays. But I've always been the opinion that until Justin Herbert wins a playoff game, it's like, okay, you're a really good quarterback. But at the end of the day, I did compare him to Phillip Rivers. Like, this is a guy who's a modern day Phillip Rivers. A lot of people are like, you can't say that, Justin Herbert. Look at the arm strength. Look at the talent around him. And like, look at how many arm angles he can throw the ball at. You can't compare him to Phillip Rivers. But what did Rivers do? He would choke in big games, disappear sometimes, and put up godly numbers, which is exactly what Justin Herbert does.
Yeah, I think a comparison similar would be like a Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Because, and I think we had talked about this a few weeks ago. It's like
Poverty.
the media pumps him up a lot. They put him in the top 5 conversation. He's not in the top 5 conversation. You can't blow a 27-point lead and be top 5. Lamar Jackson hasn't done that. Josh Allen hasn't done that. Joe Burrow, Patty Mahomes, you name it. Those guys don't blow 27-point leads. And I think the media anoints him this higher power. And he has those arm angles and he has those highlight plays. But when it matters most, when you need a field goal or a touchdown to win the game, he's going to throw it to the other team, or they're just going to just have a 3 and out. Like his off, like he's not clutch. He's not clutch at all. And you prove that with the playoff game against the Jags, and you've proven it the last 7 weeks where you need a drive, whether it's the Cowboys game, whether it's the Chiefs game, you need to get something going. It just doesn't happen. It never happens. It's the Chargers are the easiest team to predict at this point because you know it's going to be a close game. There's going to be a stupid Brandon Staley call, or if there's not a stupid Brandon Staley call, the offense is just going to disappear.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the Chargers, it's like there's no way you're making the playoffs this year. And even if you do make the playoffs, you're going to get dog walked in the first half. But I think this team without Mike Williams, I was like, when that happened, I was like, your season's over. You can't win with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both not being on the field. And then the injury issue started last year where Mike Williams was playing in a game that didn't matter for seeding at all. People are like, Brandon Staley, why are you doing this? He gets injured in that game, and then versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's probably the difference in winning and losing that game. Then you get to go up and match up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Jaguars end up losing that game, but at the end of the day, they built on it last year, and they built on that win. Have Calvin Ridley come back. Their defense looks better than last year. Their offense has taken a step forward with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has improved year in and year out. Justin Herbert is the same guy that he was when he came into the league. It's like you haven't improved since you've come into the league. And I don't want to hear like, oh, yeah, he's a top 5 quarterback. No, he's not. No, he's not. I would take Lamar, Mahomes, Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and I would even take Josh Allen over him. Josh Allen has proven more that he can get to the playoffs. I would take CJ Stroud over him at this point with Houston, what he's doing. So it's like Chargers are kind of fucked now because when that contract kicks in, it's not like this team's going to get better.